Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo, what up, brothers? It's the Director. Chargers fans. Who's ready for a little NFL draft talk, man? Here we go. My first draft video of the season. Kind of crazy, right? I mean, at this point. But you know what? With free agency being so huge, which I predicted it was going to be really, really big for the Chargers, I wanted to give that my full attention. And that doesn't mean that we're done signing free agents, right? I still think the Chargers, with a decent amount of cap space at this point, still have some moves to make. But my attention at this point has begun shifting to the draft now that some of the bigger moves are out of the way. Khalil Mack, J.C. Jackson, smashing success free agency period for the Chargers. But now let's get excited about the NFL draft a little bit too, right? Sure, I'm a little worried about right tackle, but you know what? I do think something is brewing behind the scenes with the Chargers that we just don't know about yet. So I'm willing to give that situation a little bit of time, okay, but just a little bit. I know a lot of Chargers fans, myself included, are getting pretty antsy about fixing the right side of that line. Either way, let's focus a little bit on the draft and my top 10 guys that I think the Chargers should be targeting this season. I think the Chargers are looking at a pretty decent spot this year, right at pick number 17. Lots of possibilities there, and in my opinion, the Chargers will be looking to add some solid players to further boost this impressive roster in LA. So before we do get started with the video, guys, quick question in the comments, and a bit of a tricky one today. If offensive line is still a huge need in April, right, would you forego a Trevor Pening selection in favor of best player available? Okay, and to kind of explain that, let's say Derek Stingley is still on the board, but Trevor Pening is also there. Do you pass on Derek Stingley in order to shore up the right side of that line? Let me know in the comment section below. Well, with that, guys, let's get into this one. Before we do, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. The small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, and bell notification helps me out a lot. Let's get into this one. Lights, camera, action. My top 10 draft targets for the Chargers in the 2022 NFL draft. Let's get into it, babe. Before we roll into the players and stuff, opening statement by Commissioner Director, okay? Of course, on this list, you're not going to see guys like Aiden Hutchinson or Kyle Hamilton. These guys will be gone, okay? But I do think the Chargers could acquire some very solid pieces at number 17, and that's what I'm going to try and focus on, are the guys that are probably within our reach. Sure, I'm going to involve a couple of players that might involve trades as well, but you know what, knowing the Bolts, I can see us staying put at 17 as well. Okay, so, and that's okay. That's kind of the trend with Tom Telesco. This list is going to be based on current need as well. So if you're watching this a little bit further into the future and the Chargers have since then, signed a right tackle, right guard, this is going to change a little bit. Okay, and also keep note that I will be adding a player comp at the end of every observation of these players. Keep in mind this is very, very loose. Okay, but I do like player comps because it does get a lot of information, out into the open with very little explanation. So just keep in mind there will be player comps, but it's be very, very loose, okay? And as a refresher for the Chargers, our biggest needs are offensive line, cornerback, and a speed wide receiver. Of course, there's a little bit more to tag on to the end of there, but in my opinion, those are probably the biggest needs. This will be ranked from least likely to most likely player for the Chargers as we make our way up this list. All right, so let's get into it, man. Let's start with the honorable mentions for the Chargers. I know there's gonna be a lot of guys like, Director, why didn't you add this guy or that guy? Well, to get some of those guys out of the way that didn't make my top 10, we'll start with Jordan Davis, the dude that absolutely dominated the NFL Combine. And I like Jordan Davis a lot, and I do still think he could be on the table for the Chargers, but his signing would be maybe a little bit redundant. This could work because you could definitely put, Sebastian Joseph Day and Austin Johnson into more of a 3-4 defensive end role, really shore up that run defense, but, maybe a little redundant at this point. We also have Trayvon Walker on this list. Edge 3 for the Chargers, I'm going to say, is a huge need for this team, but Trevon Walker might be a little too sweet for me in round 1, considering the Chargers' other positions of need, but still, I wouldn't be opposed to it. Next, we got Trent McDuffie, who I think would be a solid signing if we walked away in April with, but the Chargers, in my opinion, do need a little more length at cornerback, and I think there's a good chance that maybe a larger size cornerback may be available to the Chargers at pick 17. And then finally, we got Devontae Wyatt, who I do think is a better fit at 3-4 defensive end for the Chargers, maybe lining up next to that nose tackle. Still not a huge need anymore, but I figure I put him in the honorable mentions. And then one more, a beast player coming out of Utah, Devin Lloyd. Man, is this guy exciting. Very exciting to think about him joining the Chargers. He is an absolute beast. But with Brandon Staley letting Kaiser White walk as of, I think, this morning, being signed to the Philadelphia Eagles, I think Staley's perspective and his value on the inside linebacker position is pretty clear. So we're going to have to go ahead and, keep him out of our top 10 here, okay? So with that, let's get into the top 10 players that I will be targeting if I were the Chargers GM going into April and the NFL draft, starting with Ikem Ekwonu. Sticky Icky out of NC State, man. Okay, so I struggled whether or not to put Icky on this list because obviously he is going to be gone by pick number 17. One of the best offensive tackles in this draft. But there has been a scenario for the Chargers trading up to get him that's circulating on Twitter. So I figured, hey, let's go ahead and do it. This would be one of those guys where I'm like, yeah, I guess I don't mind trading up to grab, one of the best tackles in this class. And I do think it is possible, okay? The Chargers could very well view Icky, as their guy in 2022, and I do think he would be worth it in a trade scenario. With 2 rookie tackles, or I should say 2 tackles on a rookie contract in Rashawn Slater and Icky, I think the Chargers could find some financial relief for several years while also protecting Justin Herbert. That's a really big deal, okay? Ekwonu, in my opinion, is as good as it gets at the tackle position. He played left tackle, but I don't think there's any doubt in my mind that he could play right tackle as well. He will not only protect Justin Herbert, but offer a lot in run blocking as well. He's got amazing body control even at his size at 6'4". It's a nice combination of power and athleticism. I think trading up for Icky offers, a surefire way of rounding out this roster, especially on that offensive line. But it would come with a cost, okay? I do think the trade projection was somewhere in the realm of at least 2 first-round picks, including this year's and next year's, in order to go get Icky Ekwonu, okay? So I like Icky. I think it would be a solid move, but at the same time, I do think the Chargers have a lot of good options at 7. But I thought it was worth putting him on the list. My player comp for him is going to be a prime Jason Peters, I guess. It's really hard to, add player comps for offensive linemen, but at the same time, I saw that listed on a couple of websites, decided to throw it on the list here, okay? At number 9 of players that the director is targeting for the Chargers, again, in terms of, least likely to most likely, at number 9 comes Derek Stingley, okay? Cornerback out of LSU. This would be a slam dunk slide for the Bolts, in my opinion. And honestly, I've seen several drafts where Derek Stingley does slide a little bit, okay? I think, again, it's because of his foot injury. I think outside of his talent, there's really nothing I'm too concerned about, but his foot injury, which I think was a foot injury, okay, is similar to the one suffered by Cam Newton in 2019. I know Cam Newton, outside of his health, had a decline, but I don't think the injury is as big of a deal as a lot of other ones that we're seeing coming into this draft. Now, I think Stingley will be fine. There's a chance that he performs at his pro day early April, and I think that'll bring a lot of clarity to GMs and fans wondering where he's going to go in the draft. The downside of that is if he has a killer pro day, which I do expect that he will if he's filling up to it, I think it's going to boost his draft stock and keep him well out of the range for the Chargers. Others do also have concerns that he didn't improve much in terms of talent and stuff like that after his freshman year, which he absolutely killed it. But I don't really think a lot of quarterbacks targeted him after that. I think that in terms of, he didn't improve, I think that's being blown out of proportion just a little bit. Now, I think Stingley, in my opinion, dudes, he could be the best cornerback in this draft. And these concerns, again, are being blown out of the water. The issue is that I do think his draft stock, again, will grow a lot between now and April 28th. I do think that he's going to come back, show that he's healthy, and I think a lot of people are going to put aside those nitpickingness of, what did he do after his freshman year? Again, I don't know if I'm a quarterback and I'm going to target my receiver in the area of Derek Stingley after such an impressive freshman campaign. Now, I think, you pair him up with J.C. Jackson's in the Chargers specifically, right? This could be the best cornerback duo in football, plain and simple, right? Especially considering that both are very good in man coverage. Having two lockdown corners, man, would allow the Chargers to really attack the quarterback with their, one of the best, pass rushing duos in the NFL, in Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I think this would be an awesome pick, and one that if he does slide to the Chargers would be a very easy decision for me, at least. So my player comp is ironically enough going to be Stephon Gilmore. When you talk about, him, pairing up with J.C. Jackson, we could see a lot of those similarities that J.C. Jackson had with Stephon Gilmore in New England. So very cool player right there, man. I think a lot of people will be happy if we walked away with Derek Stingley. Next up at number 8 for the Chargers. I know I talked about this in my opening statement, but hear me out, okay? Jermaine Johnson, edge out of Florida State. I know I said no edge rushers. Edge 3, not as important as offensive line, maybe even speed wide receiver, cornerback. But Johnson, to me, I do think is an exception here, okay? There's a world where maybe he does slide. I still think a trade would be necessary in order to get him, though. Even if it's a lesser trade, let's say he starts sliding into, the early teens, I wouldn't be opposed to the Chargers trading up to grab Jermaine Johnson if they really feel like they can utilize him, okay? Johnson, in my opinion, offers a lot of versatilities to the Bolts, specifically in Staley's scheme, even in year 1, okay? We have to remember that the Chargers, we don't operate in your vanilla base, 3-4 too often. In nickel and dime, we could see a combination of Bosa, Mack, and if we decide to draft Johnson on the field at once. Imagine rotating Bosa and Mack to that defensive end position every so often and getting Johnson beside one of them. That is pretty brutal. Like, when you have to get after the quarterback, I think there's a world where you can put all 3 of these guys on the field at once. And honestly, it makes a lot of sense for the Chargers to continue throwing resources at getting to the quarterback with the stacked AFC West roster of quarterbacks we're seeing in this division. So, if anything, I think a signing like Jermaine Johnson, the Chargers would always have an elite pass rusher on the field. Because you have to remember, Bosa and Mack are not going to be on the field 100% of the snaps. So having a guy like Jermaine Johnson out there to rotate in is a very nice luxury to have on defense. So my player comp for Jermaine Johnson is going to be, it's a tough one, but he does resemble the Smith brothers out of Green Bay, Preston and Zadarius Smith, okay? And that's via Draft Network. So just imagine having that talent, alongside guys like Bosa and Mack. Very exciting thing to think about. Next up at number 7, the Chargers in this scenario continue to pursue need, and I think it would be a very intelligent pick if he does make it down to 17 in Charles Cross, offensive lineman out of Mississippi State. Now, Cross might be one of the better pass protectors in this entire draft. He is really, really good in pass pro. And again, he was a starting left tackle, very similar to the previous prospects that we've been looking at, but I do think he could play right tackle. But I don't view him as versatile as the others that we've been listing on this video, okay? Still, the ability to protect your quarterback is very, very huge, and I think he's one of the best in doing so. Now, Cross does need a little bit work in his run blocking, but projects as an immediate starter in the NFL, and that's something I definitely value when you're looking at, filling a huge hole in the right side of your line. There's a decent chance that Cross slides, but it's no guarantee to the Chargers, okay? So if the Chargers still have a need at offensive line, this would be a huge add via the draft, and one that I'd be very excited of them walking away with. So my player comp for Charles Cross, this one's coming in via Draft Network, is going to be Laramie Tunsil, okay? Get very loose comparisons, but very good versus, pass rush. Good in pass pro. Next up at number 6 for the Chargers, this is actually a guy that I really, really like and hope that the Chargers definitely have higher on their draft board. It's going to be another offensive lineman, this time Kenyon Green out of Texas A&M. Now, Green is one of my favorite targets at pick number 17. I think that he could be there, right? Because interior offensive line normally doesn't get drafted too high. However, I do think in the case of Kenyon Green, his versatility may get him drafted sooner. He may not even reach the Bolts, okay? This guy can do it all. Plays pretty much every position outside of center. That is very, very impressive. This is a massive trait, in my opinion, especially if you're a guy like Brandon Staley that likes to have, some flexibility in all areas of the field. Now, the Chargers could try very many looks even before kickoff with a guy like Kenyon Green. Does he fit best, at right guard, left guard, right tackle? Could he be our answer there? Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility, right? Sure, he most likely ends up at guard, but there's a real chance that he's our right tackle in 2022 as well. His versatility is very impressive. Now, remember, a lot of analysts projected Slater to be a guard as well, so the Chargers have already lived this narrative once before. Maybe Kenyon Green fits into the same story as well. Green is a very talented run blocker and a very solid pass protector as well. He could be a very huge add that also offers insurance if something develops mid-season to this offensive line. So very nice to have that versatility in case, right? Just in case. There's also a lot, there's just a lot of love that I have for Green. I think, it's not a sexy pick on the surface, but a very, very solid one overall, okay? So his player comp via Draft Network is going to be Elgton Jenkins of the Green Bay Packers. I'm not quite sure how versatile Jenkins is. I'm sure he is if he's being comped to, Kenyon Green, but this is a solid player in my opinion. Next up, we're getting into the top 5 of my favorite players for the Chargers to target in the 2022 NFL Draft. This definitely is one of those eye-popping players in SaShon Gardner, cornerback out of Cincinnati. Here's a dream scenario in the works, right? I'm starting to see a lot of mock drafts with SaShon in reach of pick number 17. A lot of drafts where the Chargers even pass up on him and he gets selected just outside, the top 20. I love this man. Of course, I think, realistically, when draft day is here, I think that he does go a little higher. But man, would this be another slam dunk at defensive back for the Los Angeles Chargers, man. Gardner possesses a rare combination of size and speed. This guy is like 6'2", 6'3". He ran a 4.41. Wow, man. You don't see that very often when it comes to the cornerback position in the NFL. And he offers the Chargers, in my opinion, if they were to grab him, a great counter to guys like DK Metcalf and Deebo Samuel, who are going to be seeing in our 2022 schedule, all right? But his coverage skills, on top of his size, man, his coverage skills are also top-notch in this year's class. Prime in-zone coverage and in press coverage. His ability to use his size to his advantage is a very attractive trait, in my opinion, especially in generating picks, right? This is a great piece to add to this DB-heavy scheme, especially alongside guys like J.C. Jackson and Derwin James. His skill set really does give Brandon Staley the versatility to defend anything our opponent can whip up. So I love this pick. SaShon Gardner, I really don't have any idea why people are passing on him in mock drafts at this point of the year, but he's one of my favorite guys for the Chargers to target, especially if he does slide. His player comp via actually quite a bit of different sources is going to be Richard Sherman, kind of mixed with Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie. And if you're a Chargers fan, you know how lethal DRC was back in the day. So SaShon Gardner comes in at number 5. He would be higher in terms of talent for me, but I don't think that he's going to make it to 17. At least he's less likely to make it to 17, in my opinion. Coming in at number 4 in this list is going to be Chris Olave, wide receiver, Ohio State. I do think Garrett Wilson should have had a place on this list as well, but again, I don't know if he reaches us, and mock drafts are kind of all over the place right now. So I'm going to put Chris Olave here a bit safer, especially at number 4 in terms of availability. Olave has become a very popular name among Chargers fans since his impressive combine performance. At 6'1", running a 4.39, he looks very well-rounded to me, okay? Fast, decent sized. He would be an awesome weapon for Justin Herbert. Now, Olave to me is a very crisp route runner as well, okay? Because a lot of people see, wide receivers in the draft. At one point, myself included, and we were looking for speed, right? Especially when you got a quarterback like Herb. But at the same time, Olave offers a lot more than that, right? He's got the route running. He's got the hands. He's very speedy. I just do think that he offers a lot more than speed. And in general, very good in separation as well. So he's not Mike Williams in terms of size, but he's definitely not small either. So Chris Olave, to me, very well-rounded. He'd be a very nice piece to add to this offense. He could really add that speed option to the Chargers that we're looking for as well. Keenan, he might see a lot more work in the slot, where he generates some of his best numbers. Maybe you see, Chris Olave at 2. You can swap those guys as much as you want. And this would finally give Justin Herbert the speed option that he's looking for. This is a huge boost for this team. Olave could definitely deliver that speed that we're looking for. So outside of Keenan, separation can also be hard to find in this receiver core right now. I think Olave offers prime chain mover ability for this team. So my player comp for Chris Olave is going to be Calvin Ridley. Outside of the bad habits that got him suspended this season, I think he offers a lot of the same things, and I think that would be a huge addition to this offense for Justin Herbert. So Chris Olave definitely on the table still for the director. Next at number 3, we're cracking the top 3 guys. These are kind of like my dream scenario guys for the Chargers, and also in terms of availability, a little more realistic too. Jameson Williams, wide receiver out of Alabama. Now his availability is going to heavily revolve around his narrative and his injury as we go forward. But when it comes to risk and reward, as far as, you're going to get the best, you're going to be risking a little bit with his playing time. Williams is on top of that list for sure. Boy, is this guy exciting to watch, man. In terms of top speed options this year at the wide receiver position, it's Williams by a wide margin. Obviously, he didn't run the 40 time at the combine, his injury, but this guy has sub 4.3 written all over him, and much more than just speed, like I was saying before, because again, what I look for in a speed receiver is much more than just speed. This guy is a smooth route runner, able to get separation and just, create big plays out of nowhere. He really understands how to get open, especially deep, which is definitely a huge boost for this team specifically. Paired with Justin Herbert, that is an insane combination that, brings a lot of potential for big plays on this team. Really reminiscent of Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. I'm not saying he's Tyreek Hill, but at the same time, that kind of potential in big plays definitely exists with this scenario. Now, many say that he should see a lot of slot work as well, which this does fit the Chargers scheme beautifully. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, and then a speed option in the slot. That is very, very nice to think about. I do see a decent chance that he's available at 17 as well, okay? Why is he not higher on most draft boards? Of course, it's going to be because of his injury. Jameson tore his ACL early January. That is a big yikes, but his recovery time frame is shockingly positive at this point. Just 6 weeks out of surgery, he's out of a boot, he's rehabbing, he's doing that pool work and all that sort of stuff. He, has a shot to make camp even if it is a little bit late, and that does give him a better shot to be more involved in the offense immediately. I'm not saying week 1 you're going to hand him, 10, 15 receptions, but at the same, or targets, but at the same time, he should be more involved this season than a lot of people thought. Now, of course, this doesn't wipe away all concern, and ACL is definitely not anything to take lightly, but his talent, in my opinion, is just too high. If his name is available, I'm running the card up to the podium. Jameson Williams to the Chargers would be such a nasty weapon that perfectly complements our quarterback and our style of play. My player comp for Jameson Williams is going to be a prime Deshaun Jackson, kind of mixed with Jerry Jeudy of the Denver Broncos. Very talented player that offers a lot more than just speed. Here at number 2 for the Chargers, we got an awesome name here that I think some people are starting to overlook, and I have no idea why. In Andrew Booth, cornerback out of Clemson. In terms of likeliness, I think Booth is a great player that could be available to the Chargers at pick number 17, okay? Booth is an insanely talented and lengthy cornerback. Not insanely lengthy, but he is very talented at 6 foot. He's not the biggest corner out there, but he does play very big, using that length to his advantage. He excels in man coverage especially too, which again, I think is something the Chargers are going to try and implement a little more of this season, and is pretty decent in zone as well, but I do think he has a little room to improve in that department. His body control, in my opinion, is very impressive. He could definitely be asked to, shadow some of the better wide receivers in the NFL at this point. What excites me the most, I think, about Andrew Booth, his aggressiveness going after the football. I like that a lot. He's got ball hawking potential that I think could blossom with the Chargers and their, elite pass rushing duo and Khalil Mack and Joey Bosa. I think putting him alongside JC Jackson is also really good for him as a player as well. I think Andrew Booth, in my opinion, could be a cornerback 1 for any team, but man, is he a hell of a cornerback too, okay? If the Chargers mantra is generating more picks this season, I think Booth is a very good fit in LA. My player comp for him, many sources, guys, a lot of different websites are comparing him to Jair Alexander of the Green Bay Packers, and that definitely would be a very good thing for this team. So Andrew Booth at number 2. Finally, at number 1, I'm not sure if this is going to come to as a surprise to many Chargers fans because of where we're at with our offensive line at this point. It's going to be Trevor Pening, offensive tackle out of Northern Iowa. Here it is. The most logical choice for the Chargers in 2022. Not super sexy, but definitely necessary at this point in time, okay? Of the year 1 impact offensive tackles in this draft, I think Pening has the best shot to make it to us at pick number 17. And you know what? I'm fine with it. Okay, Pening is a solid player that would really add to this offense. And the Chargers, their current offensive line needs, I think, he's a name that we need to hope we see at pick number 17 for LA. Now, Pening, to me, again, a solid all-around tackle who excels, I would say, mainly in a power run scheme. Sure, some will say and worry that he's not a fit for this offensive line, but trust me, he would be a great piece for this offensive line that desperately needs a right tackle, especially, for the Chargers. He's solid in pass protection. He's very good in run blocking. This just checks a lot of boxes for what this team needs right now, okay, and for what you want in a right tackle in this league. And he's the obvious choice as of right now to me. In terms of need and talent, this would be a big win for the Chargers if we walked away with Trevor Pening, okay? His player comp is going to be John Runyon's size and Riley Reif's play style via NFL.com, okay, guys? So there's your number one guy here in Trevor Pening. So my bottom line in this video, okay, it's kind of all over the place because, again, there's a lot of things that might happen between now and April 28th. But my bottom line is, the Chargers have a very nice roster to build on this season, okay? Probably one of the best that we've had in a long time, and that's really good. That's a big advantage going to the draft. And outside of tackle, we could take really whoever we want, which is, again, very nice spot if you're a GM in the NFL. However, I do have to point out that this is exactly why I do not want to go into the draft boxed in if I don't have to. And what this means is that if we go into the draft with the right side of the offensive line the way it is, we'd be more inclined to pass on a talented player at a skill position in order to fill that need, okay? It's not the worst situation in the world, especially if we land a guy like Pening, but there's really no guarantee at pick number 17 that Penning's even available, right? If the best offensive tackle on the board is, let's say, a guy like Daniel Filele or Bernard Raymond, I would hope the Chargers at that point trade down, as these guys to me are more second rounders. But even then, you'd have to use that capital to maybe reach or potentially miss on them both. It's just not a very good position to put them in. My point is, I hope the Chargers address right tackle before the draft, okay? This frees up a lot of what we can do at pick number 17. If a guy like Jameson Williams or Andrew Booth is available at pick 17, I want the freedom to select them, worry-free of our offensive line, okay? If no one falls and a guy like, let's say Kenyon Green or Trevor Pening ends up being the selection anyway, I'm totally fine with that. The guy that we sign maybe ends up being a very quality swing tackle, I just hope that the Chargers don't reach. And there's a chance that the Chargers are serious about, starting Pipkins or even Matt Filer at right tackle this season, which in my opinion is not a bad option, even if it's not preferred by me. So maybe the possibility of hoping for a right tackle in the draft, maybe that scenario is not as real as it is in my head, but still a cheap ad like Dennis Kelly, that would go a long way to put my mind at ease, okay? So let me know your thoughts in that situation. I think the Chargers at this point, just grab somebody, right, to give yourself a little flexibility in the draft. And lastly, to answer my own question from the top of the show, would I pass on a guy like Sauce to shore up the offensive line if it's still a pressing need? I would not do that. I take Sauce every time, okay? These caliber of players are just, too talented to pass on in favor of need, in my opinion. Sure, I would be stressed to hell and back about, what to do at right tackle, but at that point, I would be more willing to move Matt Filer to right tackle because, kind of risk and reward. We're grabbing a really good player, best player available, as well as trying to solve that right tackle position. So just let me know in the comment section below what you guys think. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me. Hit us up with a like and sub on your way out if you did enjoy this Chargers content. Thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been The Director. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up and stay frosty. Oh man, Jameson Williams, that's my guy this season.